We're starting today on Daf Nun Daled Amud Beis, where it says Natal es Adam, the last line. So this goes back to the Mishnah. After the Mishnah finished talking about all the halachas of the Ketores, it comes back to talk about the halachas of the spraying of the blood that was done inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim and so on. Natal es Adam mimi shememares by v'chulu. He took the blood of the par that was left for another kain to mix, that it shouldn't get congealed. Then he brought it into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and as it said in the Mishnah, he would spray the blood achas lamayla v'sheva lamata, that he would spray the blood like a matzlif. So what does it mean? My kematzlif. What does the word of matzlif mean? So machvi Rav Yehuda showed menagdina. Like when you give malchus, for a person that's chayav malchus on his back. So as Rashi here says, you begin the malchus on the top, near his shoulder, and then you keep on going lower and lower. The same thing here with the achas lamayla v'sheva lamata, you start higher up, and then you spray the blood going down lower and lower. Tana, in a Braisa we learned, it spells out and it clarifies how this was done. Kishehu mazeh, when he sprays this blood, eine mazeh ala kapeiris. You don't spray it on the kapeiris itself. As the Gemara here will learn out, even though in the pasuk it actually says al penei kapeiris or ala kapeiris, but you don't spray the blood, even the one that goes achas lamayla, on the kapeiris. And also, so where do you spray it? El keneged oivya shel kapeiris. You spray it towards the thickness of the kapeiris, the side of the kapeiris, and the blood lands on the floor. Keshu mazel lamayla, when he sprays the blood upward, mitzadid yodai lamata. So he positions the bottom of his hand downward. That's how you spray up. The bottom of your hand is facing down, and your palm is facing up, and that's how you spray the blood upward. Kushu mazel lamata, and when you're spraying downward, so then mitzadid yodei lamaylo. So then the bottom of your hand is up, and the palm of your hand is facing down, and that's how you spray down. According to some Rishonim, from this Braisa you see that actually the blood that was sprayed achas lamayla v'sheva lamata, so it's just a matter of the positioning of the hand. But the actual place where the blood lands is the same. There's no lamayla, there's no lamata. It's just the aim and the direction of how it comes from your hand. But it's the same, lamayla, lamata lands in the same place. But Rashi earlier in Masechta Yoma says that lamayla does go higher up, and then lamata you keep on going lower and lower, as Rashi over here says regarding matzlif. But now, the Gemara is going to focus on the chiddush that it said in this Braisa, that you do not spray the blood on top of the surface of the kapeiris. So as I mentioned, in the pasuk it says, ala kapeiris. But nevertheless, that's not how you do it. Why not? So the Gemara, mino hani mili. From where do I know this, that you don't spray it on top of the surface of kapeiris? Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Amar Rab Zera. So Rav Acha bar Yaakov says in the name of Rab Zera. Let's take a look at what it says in the psukim. So for the benefit of understanding the continuation of this Amud Gemara, we have to look at the psukim that it says in the Torah regarding the spraying of the blood of the sa'ir and regarding the spraying of the blood of the par. First actually came the par and then the sa'ir. So you have here the psukim on the side of the Gemara. So the second pasuk is the pasuk from the par, where the pasuk says V'lokach midam hapar v'hiza be'etzboi al penei kapeiris kedma. You spray it onto the kapeiris. That refers to the achas lamayla. And then it says, "V'lifnei kapeiris yazeh sheva pamim." In front of the kapeiris, you spray 7 times. Min adam be'etzboi. That refers to the sheva lamata. So regarding the par in this pasuk, so it spells out clearly how many times you spray lifnei kapeiris regarding the sheva lamata. But regarding the al penei kapeiris, it doesn't say a number. It just says v'hiza be'etzboi al penei kapeiris. This is the pasuk by the par. Now let's take a look at the pasuk of what it says by the sa'ir. V'shochet es-asir achatos ashala'am v'hevi es domoi al mibeis lapareiches v'osa es domoi kasha osa l'dam apar v'hiza oisai, and then it says you spray it ala kapeiris, and so it says v'hiza oisai. Oisai is a lashon yachid, so that means that you spray it once on the kapeiris, and then it says v'lifnei kapeiris. You also spray in front of the kapeiris. So regarding the ala kapeiris, which refers to the lamayla, there, the pasuk says here, it does spell out how many? Oisai, once. Regarding lifnei kapeiris, which refers to the lamata, here it doesn't spell out how many times. So that's what the Gemara is going to discuss here. So it comes out that regarding the par, the pasuk tells me how many times it's sprayed lamata, sheva pamim. Regarding Lamaila, Ala Kapairis, it doesn't say a number. Regarding the Soir, it's the reverse. How many times you spray Lamaila on the Kapairis, the Pasuk says, Oisai, only once. Regarding Lefnei Kapairis, it does not say how many times Lamata. Okay? But this Pasuk does say, this is a very important part of the Pasuk here, by the Soir it says, V'osa ez damoi kasher osa ladama par, that whatever is done to the Soir is similar to the way it was done by the par. So now let's see how Rav Acha bar Yaakov darshans these psukim. V'hiza isai omakra, the Pasuk says, V'hiza isai ala kapayres v'lifnei kapayres. By the Sa'ir, the Torah tells us that the blood is sprayed on the kapayres and it's sprayed in front of the kapayres. So ala kapayres refers to what's being sprayed lamaila, and lifnei kapayres refers to the blood that's being sprayed lamata. So he says, Lo Yoma lamata, it's not necessary to tell me that the blood is sprayed lamata, b'soyer, over here by the soyer. Why not? The loy tzarech, it's not necessary. The gomar mimata the par, because we learn out the fact that this blood is sprayed lamata from the par. So as Rashi explains, what the Gemara means to say is that since by the zrika lamata, by the soyer, it doesn't say how many times, it just says lefnei kapayres. So where are we going to learn out from? How many times? We're going to learn out from the par. By the par, it says sheva palmim, and like the pasuk here actually says, v'osa es damai kasher osa ladama par. So once I'm learning it out from the par, so why does it have to even say v'lifnei kapayres? It doesn't have to say that at all. If it's not telling me the number of how many times, it doesn't even have to tell me b'chlal this inyan that it's sprayed lifnei kapayres, and I would know that it's done this way because I compare it to the dama par. Now, the first part of what the pasuk says, "V'hiza oisai ala kapayres," that the sa'ir is sprayed once above, that does have to say, even though seemingly that could also be learnt out from the par, because we compare it to the par, but that has to say because it's only here where it gives me the number, "V'hiza oisai," that it's done one time. That number does not say by the par. But regarding the sheva lamata, by the sa'ir, it doesn't say a number. So anyways, I'm learning it out from the par. So if I'm learning it out from the par, so the whole lefnei hakapayres is extra. So then why does it say? Lo manema. Why does the Torah write here by the sa'ir lefnei hakapayres? The answer is la kushe al lefnei. I'm comparing the blood that was sprayed lamaila, the pasuk uses the term al, to the blood that's sprayed lamata when the Torah says lefnei. Ma lifnei, the lav al, just like when the Torah writes lifnei, it doesn't actually go on the surface of the kapayres. It's just in front of the kapayres, it lands on the floor. Af al, so too, when it says al, the lav al, it doesn't actually mean that it has to go on the kapayres itself. It's sprayed upward, but it doesn't have to go on the kapayres itself. That's why the Torah writes by the soyer v'lifnei kapayres, which is extra, to compare the al to lifnei, to say that all of the blood that was sprayed from the par or the soyer does not have to land on the kapayres itself. But now the Gemara asks on this, how do we know that this is how we should compare them? Just like b'nigeya to the soyer, when it says lifnei kapayres, that's extra. I also have an extra pasuk by the par, as the Gemara will now explain. Adarabe, maybe I should say to the contrary. Lo yoymar lamayla bepar. When it comes to the blood that's sprayed from the par, over there it's not necessary for the Torah to write that it's sprayed lamayla, the loy tzarich, the gomar mimayla the so'ir, because I learn it out from the blood that's sprayed lamayla by the so'ir. So as I explained before, when it comes to the blood of the par, the Torah says, V'hiza be'etzboi al panei kapayres. It doesn't give a number. From where do I learn out how many times? It's learned out from the soyer, because by the soyer it does say how many times. It says visa oisai, once. So I'm anyways learning out the number of the blood sprayed lamaila by the par from the soyer. So if I'm comparing the blood from the par to the blood of the soyer regarding lamaila, so then it doesn't have to write it at all, because the pasuk says va'asa es dame kasha asa ladama par. I know to compare the two, and I would know that the blood has to be sprayed lamaila. So just like we said before, regarding the lifnei kapayres, by the sa'ir, that's extra by the sa'ir, regarding the par, when it talks about ala kapayres, the blood that's sprayed lamaila, that's extra. So why does the Torah write al regarding the par? So therefore, maybe I should say that I compare it in the opposite way that we compared before. So Loma Nemar, why does the Torah say al regarding the par that the blood is sprayed onto the kapeiros? So I can say la kushe lifnei la al, that it's coming to compare the blood that the pasuk says lifnei, the blood that sprayed lamata, to the blood that sprayed al, ma'al al mamish. Just like when it says al, it means literally that it should go onto the kapeiros itself. That's the meaning of the word. Af lifnei, so too when it says lifnei, it means al mamish, that it has to literally go on top of the kapeiros. So instead of comparing the al to lifnei, which is extra by the sa'ir, and to say that I learn out that all of it does not have to be under the kapeiros, maybe I should compare it to the reverse. I should compare the lifnei to the al, which is extra by the par, to say that all of it does have to go on the kapeiros. So the Gemara says no. If you have these two extra psukim here, and you don't know which way to compare, so what do you want to do? You want to compare them in a way that you're going to have a drasha for both of these extra psukim. So therefore the Gemara says, Hi mai. What is your question here? It's going to be well understood if you're going to say lamata the sa'ir la kushi, that we're taking the extra lifnei, which is lamata, that it says by the sa'ir, and I'm comparing that to the al, to teach me that none of it has to go on top of the kapeiros. So that covers that pasuk which is extra, the pasuk by the sa'ir which is extra. So now I'll be able to tell you what's with the other pasuk which is extra. The ala kapeiros by the par which is extra, lemaila the par. Over there, that pasuk which is extra by the par, what am I going to do with it? I have a drasha for that pasuk as well. Like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said, the Tana Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, al penei kapeiros keidma. The pasuk says on top of the kapeiros, and it adds the word keidma, which means mizrach. This is a source that teaches me for all places that kol makim shenema pnei ein ela kodem. Whenever it writes pnei, it means mizrach. So therefore, if I learn the drasha in this way, I compare the al to the lifnei that it says by the sa'ir, which is extra, to teach me that none of it has to go on the surface of the kapeiros. And then, when I have the al pnei kapeiros keidma, which is extra by the par, I use that for the drasha of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. So both of these extra psukim by the par and the sa'ir are being used for a drasha. But ella amrit, if you're going to say lemaila the par, when it says the extra pasuk of al pnei kapeiros by the par, la kushi, it's coming to say the hekesh, it's coming to compare the al to lifnei, to teach me that all of it has to go on the surface of the kapeiros. So now if so, lemata the soir, the extra pasuk of lifnei kapeiros that it says by the soir, lemayasa. What is that pasuk coming to teach me? I have nothing to teach me in that hekesh. So it comes out that it would be extra. So therefore, if I have a choice, how to make this drasha, either I should make the hekesh by the lamata, which is extra that it says by the sa'ir, and then I have a drasha for that, being used to teach me that none of the blood has to go on the kapeiros, and then I use the lamaila, the ala kapeiros that it says by the par that's extra. I have a drasha for that to tell me that the keidma, that whenever it says pnei, it means keidma, so then the drashas work out. I have a drasha for both psukim. But if you're going to do it in the reverse, you're going to learn out the hekish for the al pnei kapeiros that it says by the par, so then when it comes to the lifnei kapeiros that it says by the sar, you don't have any drasha for it. So therefore I make the drashas in a way that I have a drasha for the extra al pnei kapeiros that it says by the par, and the extra lifnei kapeiros that it says by the sa'ir, to teach me that all the bloods have to be done in the front of the kapeiros, and it goes on the floor, not on the surface of the kapeiros, and therefore all the drashas are covered. So this is the source that teaches me that the blood that's sprayed by the Kodesh HaKadoshim, by the kapeiros, does not have to go on top of the kapeiros, but it goes on the floor. Now the Gemara brings the Braisa, Tana Rabbanan. So the Braisa comes and explains this point that I started off with, that you look here in the Psukim, so the number of how many times the blood has to be sprayed, so by the par it says half of the story, and by the side it says half of the story. By the par it tells me the number of how many times it's sprayed lamata, sheva pamim, but it doesn't say how many times it's sprayed lamaila. By the side it's the reverse. It tells me how many times it's sprayed lamaila, because it says oisai, one time, but regarding how many times it's sprayed lamata, it doesn't say. So we're going to learn them out from each other, as the Braisa goes through at great length here to explain how they're learned out. So the pasuk the Braisa brings in the beginning is the pasuk that it says by the sa'ir. V'hiza oisai ala kapeiros. That refers to what's sprayed lamaila, and regarding that it says the number oisai, one time, and then it says v'lifnei kapeiros. It's also sprayed lamata in front of the kapeiros. So lamadno kama lamaylo. So in this pasuk we see how many times it's sprayed lamaylo b'soyer regarding the soyer here. Achas, one time, oisai. But lamata b'soyer, any ideya. But how many times it's sprayed lamata, I can't see over here in the pasuk because it doesn't say a number. Any ideya kama, so I don't know how many times. So where am I going to learn it out from? So I have two options. Hareni don, the first option would be, I would learn it out as follows. Nemru domim lamata b'pot. It says regarding the blood that's sprayed lamata by the pot. V'nemru domim lamata b'soyer. And it also says regarding the blood that's sprayed lamata by the soyer. Ma lamata b'par sheva. So by the par it does spell out how many times it's sprayed lamata. It says 7 times. So too, af lamata b'soyer sheva. I'll learn out and compare by the soyer as well that it's 7 times. That's one option. Or maybe learn it out in a different way. Don't compare the dam of the soyer lamata to the dam of the par lamata. Maybe learn out the dam of the soyer lamata to the very same blood of this carbon lamayla. So I would say as follows. Nemru domim lamayla b'soyer. There's the blood that's sprayed lamayla by the soyer. V'nemru domim lamata b'soyer. And there's this blood that's sprayed lamata by the soyer. Malamayla b'soyer achas. So I compare to the same carbon, the same soyer. So just like when it's sprayed above, it's 1 time. Aflamata b'soyer achas. So too, when it's sprayed downward, it's also 1 time. So I have 2 options. Either I should compare the lamata of the soyer to the lamata of the par, or I compare the lamata of the soyer to the lamayla of the soyer itself. So now the Braisa says, let's see what makes more sense to compare. Nira lemidaime. Let's see what it's more comparable to. Donin mata mi mata. So there's logic to say that I should compare the blood being sprayed lamata by the soyer to the blood being sprayed lamata by the par. Ve'ein donin mata mi lamayla. And I'm not going to compare the blood that's being sprayed lamata by the soyer to the blood that's being sprayed lamayla by the soyer. It's in a different direction. But there's also an opposite logic. Adarabba, to the contrary, I can tell you, donin gufay mi gufay. Let's learn out the blood of the very same carbon from this carbon itself. Ve'ein donin gufay ma'alma. Why should I compare the blood of the so'ir to the blood of the par, which is a different carbon? So again, we're stuck. If we're just going to look logically, it can go either way. So the Braisa concludes, therefore Talmud Loimar, therefore the pasuk here clearly said, "V'asa es damai kasher asa ledama par." You do with the blood of the sar like what's done with the blood of the par. Shein Talmud Loimar kasher asa. The Torah did not have to write kasher asa like it was done with the par. Ma Talmud Loimar kasher asa. Why does it say kasher asa? Sheyiu kol asiyasav shavais. The pasuk is teaching me whatever is done with the blood of the par is what's also done with the blood of the soyer. And therefore we now know, Kishem shalamata b'par sheva, just like regarding the par, it's sprayed downward 7 times. Kach lamata b'soyer sheva. So too regarding the soyer, the Torah just says lefnei kapayis, and it doesn't tell me how many times. I learn it out from the par that it's 7 times. That's how we learn it out regarding the soyer 7 times, even though it doesn't say it clearly. Now, the Braisa is going to teach us the opposite point regarding the spraying of the par lamayla, where there the Torah does not tell me how many times. It only says it by the soyer, oisai, 1 time. So now lamadno kama lamata b'par b'soyer. We know how many times you spray lamata both by the par and the soyer, which is sheva, 7 times. But lamayla b'par, how many times do I spray lamayla by the par? Any ideya? I don't know. The pasuk just says v'hiza betzboy al panei akapayres kedma. Doesn't say how many times. So again, any idea kama that is, I don't know how many times. So again, the Braisa is going to go through the same process, looking where we could logically compare it to. V'hareini dan, I can learn it out in one option as follows. Nemru damim lamayla b'soyer v'nemru damim lamayla b'par. It's written regarding the soyer that you spray lamayla and also regarding the par. And therefore I would compare and say, ma lamayla b'soyer achas, just like by the soyer, you spray once above, af lamayla b'par achas. By the par also I spray once above. Or maybe I have another option how to learn out. Nemru damim lamata b'par, v'nemru damim lamayla b'par. Maybe I should learn it out from the par itself. The par is sprayed lamayla and it's also sprayed lamata. And therefore I learn out ma lamata b'par sheva. The par is sprayed 7 times. Af lamayla b'par sheva. Maybe I learn out from the par itself that it's sprayed upwards 7 times. So again, the Braisa says nira lemidaime. Let's see where it's more comparable to. Should I say donin maila mi maila? I compare the blood of the par, which I'm spraying lamayla, to the blood of the soyer, which I'm spraying lamayla. Vein donin maila mi mata, and I'm not going to compare what I'm spraying above by the par to the blood of the par itself, which I'm being spraying lamata. It's a different direction. But Adarab, I could say it to the contrary. Donin gufay mi gufay, vein donin gufay mi alma. It makes more sense to learn out from the very same carbon itself and not to learn out from the par from the soil, which is a different carbon. So therefore, again, the Braisa concludes, Talmud Loima, the Pasuk clearly says, V'osa ez dome kasha osa, that you do for this like you did for the other one. What does this mean? That we compare the two. Whatever is done with the blood of the par to the blood of the soil, it's the same. Shein Talmud Loima kasher osa. The Pasuk did not have to say kasher osa. Uma Talmud Loima. Why does the Pasuk say this? Kasher osa. Sheyu kol asiyos of shavais. That what's done with the blood by the soil and by the par are the same. Kishem shalamata b'par sheva, just like when you spray down by the par it's 7 times. Kach lamata b'soyer sheva, so too with the soyer it's 7 times lamata. O kishem shalamayla b'soyer achas, kach lamayla b'par achas. And I also compare them regarding spraying upwards 1 time, that by the par and the soyer it's the same upwards 1 time. This is the conclusion where we see how they're mashlim each other. And what's written by the par, how many times it's lamata, and what's written by the soyer, how many times lamayla, and then when the Torah writes kasher asa, we compare them to each other. We go back to what it said in the Mishnah, achas, and achas v'achas, achas v'shtayim, that how the kohen would count when he would spray this blood. Tana Rabbanan and Abraisa, we learned the way he counts is as follows. First, he sprays once lamayla, and he counts achas. And then he continues, he's spraying lamata, and he counts achas ve'achas. Achas v'shtayim, achas v'shalosh, achas v'arba, achas v'chomish, achas v'sheish, achas v'sheva. Divrei Rab Meir. That's how Rab Meir says you count this. Rab Yudah says you start counting achas, the one above. And then you go with the other ones that you're going to be spraying lamata, and you count achas ve'achas. And then you count shtayim ve'achas. So you put the larger number first, and then you mention the achas of Lamaila, and the same with the rest. Shalosh v'achas, arba v'achas, chomish v'achas, sheish v'achas, sheva v'achas. So you put the larger number first. So it seems to be a machlekes between Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda. Rab Meir says you put the achas first, and then the other number. But the Gemara says, v'loi pligi, they're not arguing. It doesn't really matter how you counted, which one you put first. Mar ki asrei, umar ki asrei, each one according to the way it was done in their place, what the custom was. Whether you put the larger number first or the smaller number first, like today, you can say 21, or you could say 1 and 20. Or in Yiddish, it's 1 and 20, or 20 and 1. So it's either way. The point is that you have to mention that achas lamaila, even when you're counting the other ones. For the lamata, you always have to, in between, mention that achas again. So the Gemara now says, the kula mimiyis, everybody agrees, hazor rishoina, when you do that first hazor, that achas, tzricha minyan im kol achas v'achas, has to be counted again with each one of them that you're going to be counting. My time, what's the reason why it has to be counted together again with everything else? So the answer is, Rabbi Loza says, shelo yita bazois. This is helping the kohen, gadol, that he shouldn't make a mistake with his hazayas that he's done. If he does them immediately, achas, shtayim, shalosh, and keeps on going, he might get confused. So therefore, he interrupts shtayim, achas, shtayim, achas, shalosh, so it slows him down a little bit, so he can focus more on what he's doing. That's Rashi's pshat. The Tosfos Yishanim says that the pshat over here is that you want him to count achas and then start again, achas ve'achas, achas ve'shtayim, so he shouldn't get confused and just go straight from achas to shtayim to shalosh, and he's going to forget to count again the achas for lamayla and the achas for lamata. So this is Rabbi Loz's pshat. It's all just to help the kohen gadol not make a mistake. Rabbi Yechanan says, no, this is a pasuk. It's supposed to do this me'ikar adin min atayre from a pasuk. Amakra, the pasuk says, that in front of the kapairis, this refers to the sheva lamata, so you spray the blood. Shein tamud loima yazeh, that word yazeh is extra. What is it coming to teach me? It said in the pasuk, v'lokach midama par v'hiza be'etzboy apnei kapairis kedmo v'lifnei kapairis sheva pamim. It could have skipped the word yazeh. It said in the beginning v'hiza. So why does it say again yazeh? Limed alazar rishoina shetzrichem minyan im kolachas v'achas. It says again yazeh to say that it's referring back to that previous hazah that you have to introduce and bring here the previous hazah along with when you're spraying lamata. With each one of them that you're spraying lamata, you have to count along with it the achas lamayla. That's why we count achas v'shtayim and achas v'shalosh and so on. So the Gemara mai beinai. What's the difference between these two opinions, Rabbi Loza and Rabbi Yechanan's pshat? The difference will be Duloi Mana, in a case where he did not count, V'loi Ta, but he also didn't make any mistake with the amount of azaz that he did. According to Rabbi Elazar, it's fine. The only reason why we wanted him to count achas l'mayla and the achas together with the other 7 is to help him not make a mistake. If he didn't make a mistake, it's okay. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's me'ikar adin. You have to count it together. So if you didn't count it together, you're going to have to do the whole thing over again. Zok the Gemara, it said in the Mishnah, Yotzav v'nichoy al kan azav shebehechol. So then you come out from the Kodesh HaKadoshim, you place the blood on a stand inside the hechol. And it said in the Mishnah, 2 opinions. The Tanakama says there were 2 stands there. One for the blood of the par and one for the blood of the sa'ir. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there was only 1 stand. When he wanted to put down the blood of the par, so he had that stand. And then if he wanted to put down the blood of the sa'ir, he took off the blood of the par and replaced it with the dam of the sa'ir. Only 1 stand. So the Gemara is going to bring another Mishnah in Masechta Shkalim, or actually a Braise regarding Shkalim, by Masechta Shkalim. And from there, it will explain the pshat of why Rabbi Yehuda holds he didn't have 2 stands in the heichel for both bloods. So Tanan Asam, we learned there in the Braise, Rabbi Yehuda said there were many different boxes in the Beis HaMikdash that were for the monies that were brought for different types of karbanis. And these boxes were shaped like shayfris, which were narrow at the opening and wide at the bottom, so people couldn't stick in their hand and take out any money. But Rabbi Yehuda there says that there's one box for one type of carbon that they did not actually have this box. So Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, loy hayu shayfrais lekine chayva. They did not have a box for the kinei chayva that have to be brought. Kinei chayva, as Rashi says, is a zav, a zava, a yeldis, or a person that was metamet to the Beis HaMikdash. So they have to bring 2 birds, one for a oila and one for a chatas. So the money was not placed into a shayfer for the kainim to take the money and bring the karbanis for them. Like it was done with other things, that you place the money in a box, then the kainim take the money and they bring the carbon for you. But not regarding the kinei chayva, which was a oila and a chatas. Why not? Mipnei teruvis, because we're concerned that you can get it mixed up. My mipnei teruvis, what will get mixed? Rav Yosef, so Rav Yosef says, mipnei teruvas chayva benedava. We're afraid that the money of this box, which is a chayva, and the money of another box, which is an adava, they had a box there for the money that was brought as an adava, that these 2 boxes will get mixed up. What's the problem if they get mixed up? So as Rashi explains, the box of nadava is all money that's going to be used for karbanis ayla. The box of the chayva has in it the money that's going to be used for a oila and a chatas. So if they get mixed up, you're going to end up bringing the money that was supposed to be for a chatas for a oila. And they're not the same. The way the carbon is brought is not the same. So if they get mixed up, you're not going to do the hazah of the blood in the proper way. So therefore, the money that was brought for the chayva, you had to give it separately to the kayin, so the kayin could keep it separate and it wouldn't get mixed up with the nadava. So on this, Abai says to Rav Yosef, why are you concerned that the chayva and the nadava are going to get mixed up? V'navetrei, why can't you have a box for the chayva, a box for the nadava, v'nichtav alayu, and write on it, hi the chayva, v'hi the nadava. Write on the box, this is chayva and this is nadava, and the kayin will not get mixed up. The Gemara says, so the pshat here is, Rabbi Yehuda, less like sive. Rabbi Yehuda holds that we can't rely on writing on the box what it's for. It's not enough for the kayin to see, he might not pay attention, and it might get mixed up. That's Rabbi Yehuda's concern of why you don't have a separate box for the chayva. Shouldn't get mixed up with all those karbanis of nadava, which are all a oila. So now the Gemara says, where do we see this? That Rabbi Yehuda does not rely on writing. This comes back to our Mishnah. It's not, because we learned here in our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda said, there was only 1 stand in the Beis HaMikdash for the blood being placed there. For both the blood of the par and the sar, they would use 1 stand. Today, my time alloy. So now according to Rabbi Yehuda, why doesn't he agree to the Tanakama that there were 2 stands there, 1 for the par and 1 for the sar? Loi, don't you think the reason is Mishum de Mechlefi? Because if you can have 2 stands and you can have the bloods near each other, the par and the sar, you can get confused. You'll take the blood of the sar and you think you're taking the blood of the par. But let's make the 2 stands like the Tanakame, v'lichtav alayu, and write on each one of them, hai the par, v'hai the sar, which is the blood for the par and which is the blood for the sar. So what's the problem? Ella. So this is the conclusion. So we see here, let Rabbi Yehuda less like siva. Rabbi Yehuda holds you can't rely on writing on each one of them what it's for, and therefore it was only 1 stand, and you exchange it, the par and the sar, so you know what you're doing with what. So now the Gemara brings a Mishnah where we clearly see that Rabbi Yehuda does rely on writing on boxes what they're for. Meisvei. So that question was asked from the following Mishnah. it says there regarding the boxes in the Beis HaMikdash for the different monies for the karbanis that we used. That shloish esrei shofres hayu b'mikdash. There were actually 13 of these shofres, these boxes in the Beis HaMikdash. Vayikosav alei, and it was written on each one of them what it's for. There was taklan chadatim for the new shkolim, taklan atikim for the old shkolim, and the Mishnah will spell out exactly what all of this is. Kinin. Then there was for the kinin and goizlei oila for the birds brought for an oila, eitzim for wood, the levaina for the frankincense if you wanted to bring it on the mizbeach, zohav lekapayres, and a box for money for the gold for the kapayres, and then shisha lenadava. There were 6 boxes there that were brought, that were designated for the money that's going to be used for nedavis that were brought for the Beis HaMikdash. Rashi says that these was from karbanis like Hashames and Chatois that became a balmum, and that they had to let them graze and then use them, sell them, and use the money to bring a carbon nedava. And they had 6 different boxes for the different bate avis for each mishmar to be able to get for themselves that they used. They took from it the hide for the animal from that, so they didn't want to have any fight, so they divided it into 6 different boxes for each family. Okay, so we have all these different 13 boxes in total over here that there were in the Beis HaMikdash. Now the Mishnah spells out what they were for. Taklen chadatin, the box that was written on it for the new shkolim, elu shkolim shal kol shana v'shana. These are the shkolim for every year, when you bring shkolim for that year. Taklen atikin, the box that was written on it that is for the older shkolim. Mishalei shakal eshtakid, if you didn't give the shkolim, the machzas shekel from the previous year, yishkai l'shana haba, so the following year you give the machzas shekel into this box for the previous year. And those machzas shekel from the previous year, as Rashi here says, the money wasn't used anymore for the karbanis because they only used from the new shkolim of this year, but it was used for other things. Rashi brings it. They used it to build the walls of the city and other structures there in the city that they used from this money. Kinin hein titan. Kinin refers to the titan, larger birds, the turtle doves that were used as karbanis. Goizlei oila hein b'nei yaina. The box for goizlei oila is for the doves that were used for karbanis oila. The kulan oilis. All of these karbanis here are oilis. Divrei, the titan and the goizlei oila, that's all oilis. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, this is all Rabbi Yehuda explaining regarding the boxes in the Beis HaMikdash. No, so we clearly see over here that even Rabbi Yehuda agrees that there were many boxes and you wrote on them. And because you wrote on them, you're not concerned that you're going to get confused. So therefore the Gemara says a nupshat. Going back to what we said before, why, according to Rabbi Yehuda, did they not have a box for the kinei chayva, for the ones that had to bring the oila and the chatos as a chayva for a zav and so on? So the Gemara brings a nupshat. It's not because of taruvis. Rav Dimi said, Omri b'marave. In Marave and Eretz Yisrael they said, Gzeire mushum chatos shemeisu baleh. The gzeire here is, we're concerned that people throw in their money into this box for the karbanis to be brought for them, but maybe one of the people that threw the money into this box, maybe he passed away. And the halacha by a carbon chatos is that the money of this person that passed away is possible. It can't be used anymore for a carbon chatos. Regarding an oila, even if the person passes away, it could be brought as an adava. But by a carbon chatos shemeisu balel can't be used anymore. So therefore, maybe this person died. How could the kohanim take the money out of this box and use it, not knowing if the owner that put the money in is alive or is not alive? So therefore, for this box, you have to give it directly to the kohen, and the kohen knows if you're alive or not. Frag the Gemara, is that the reason? Or are we concerned that maybe the person passed away? But we learned in the Mishnah, a person that sends his chatos from far away, and we never met him, we don't know who he is, and the money is brought for him. So now, the kohanim come and are makriv the carbon for him. They bring the carbon for him, b'cheskas shukayam, and they rely on the fact that he's still alive. So what do we see over here? We're not concerned that the owner of the carbon passed away, even by carbon chatas. So how are we concerned over here regarding this kinei chayva, that was someone that put the money in the box maybe passed away, so you can't bring the money for him? Ella says the Gemara, the pshat is a bit different. Mishum chatos shamesu balei vadai. What we're concerned about is not that maybe someone passed away. What happens if we find out that one person actually passed away? So now you have, let's say, 10 people that put their money for their karbonis into this box. Someone passed away. So someone's money inside of here is possible, cannot be used anymore for the carbon chatas, and you have to remove that money. But you don't know which one is his money to remove, and it's mixed in with everything else. So what are you going to do? So that's why everyone has to give the karbonis of the chayva for a chatos separately to the kohen. So if he dies, you know what to put aside, what to remove. Fragt the Gemara, wait a minute, even if it's all mixed in together and someone died and you don't know which one is his money, but why can't we do as follows? Let's take out 4 zuzim, which is the amount of the value of one bird for the chatos, for this person that died, and throw that money out into the water, and then v'hanach nishtiru, and the rest will be mutter. So in other words, true, we don't know which is the money that he put inside, but let's go ahead and take any of the 4 zuz that's in this box, and we'll now say that now we are clarifying that this money is for him, and therefore that money is being thrown out, and the rest could be used. Why can't we do that? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda, lesle breire. Rabbi Yehuda holds this is not an option, because this is breire. This is relying on us saying that the money that we're taking now is breire. It's clarifying retroactively that this is the money that belongs for him. Rabbi Yehuda holds there's no such a thing as breire. If we don't know which money belongs to him, we can't now take that money and say that retroactively this belongs to this person that passed away. So therefore, if we find out that someone passed away, we now have a problem. His money is mixed into this box and we don't know whose money it is, and we're not going to be able to use any of the money in this box for the karbanis. So therefore, they didn't make a box for the kinei chayva. You have to give it directly to the kayan. And the Gemara here will continue in the sugya of breira to bring the source for Rabbi Yehuda that holds the din of breira. And the Gemara will also come back to explain regarding Rabbi Yehuda's opinion regarding the blood in Yom Kippur. So before we wanted to say that the basis of Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, why there was only 1 stand and not 2, is because they're going to get confused and we don't rely on writing, but we prove that Rabbi Yehuda does rely on writing what is for what. So why can't you have 2 stands in the Beis HaMikdash for the blood? The Gemara is going to come back and answer that also.